Welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast.
Hello, Broncos fans, and welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast. I am your host, Mile High Mez, along with my trusty partner, Sean F. I'll just call him Sean F. Sean, we are in good spirits overall, even though the game didn't go, well, it went the way that you thought it would. I'm the one over here with pie on my face or egg on my face, however the saying goes. It's funny how you get older and you just don't remember stuff anymore, and that's exactly what's been happening to me. So egg on my face. I have egg on my face, eating a lot of crow because unfortunately the Broncos season ended, I guess we could say, with a whimper, 31-7 in Buffalo. I think Sean pretty much nailed it on the head, and we'll get into that as to why the Broncos lost. But we just want to welcome everybody in, and we're just going to do a little bit of therapy like we always do after the Broncos lose the game. And Sean, just let me know where you're at, how you're feeling, and what your thoughts were on the game overall before we get into the specifics.
Yeah, just wasn't surprised, I guess, as sad as it is to say. I just my concerns, I guess, and not obviously I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I called it, everything I said was right, but some of the things that I was definitely worried about and things we've spoke about all year long is just they came to a head against a team that's better. And when you go against a team that's better than you, and I think Tony Romo said it probably a million times on the broadcast, that our margin for error was so small. And we just, I'm not a Tony Romo fan myself either, but he was right. I mean, the margin for error was small. We didn't win the lines of scrimmage. The running game was exactly what I thought. We'd be searching for a running back too deep into the game, and by the time we maybe found one, it was too late. So like I said, it was just it was unfortunate. I wasn't super surprised. It wasn't one of those games where I was screaming at the TV, because I thought it would go another way. But it's still one of those things where the season as a whole was super enjoyable. I enjoyed the ride. It was, we had our ups and downs, of course, but after the last 10 years, I enjoyed being a Broncos fan and getting up for every game every week this year. So, it's over, but I got nothing but positive things to look back on this year. And I think the future is bright. So, we'll take it for what it is, and we'll kind of move on to the next chapter.
Yeah, for sure. I think you make a lot of good points, and it's easy to get caught up in it, right? When the season's over and you lose like that, and the Broncos have had this propensity for getting blown out in the playoffs. We know this. It's either really close or they get blown out, typically and throughout our history. And so, yes, I would like to focus on the positives to start off, because Bo Nix started off that game with a bang, man. I was like, here we go. We're going to be able to take advantage of that secondary all day long, and we're finally going to unleash Franklin and Mims and Vele, and we're going to see some stuff out of Sean Payton. And then the Broncos just sort of stalled on offense, but not really, right? Because if I'm looking at this box score, and I had to look at this twice, Sean, time of possession,
yeah,
Buffalo had the ball for 41 minutes and 43 seconds. That's over half the game.
Yeah, 2/3.
So our offense really wasn't to blame in this game, to be honest with you, because Bo Nix first drive, excellent throw on third down, right? I think it was 3rd and 8, but 3rd and 7, with the crowd going absolutely insane, and he throws a strike to Sutton, and then was it the next play or 2 plays later, right? We scored the touchdown. And you looked at before the half, we drove down the field. He had an excellent drive. There were a couple things on that drive, right, where, he should have went out of bounds when he ran the ball. a little bit better of a throw to Sutton maybe leads him into the sideline and we can not have to burn that last time out. And maybe we get more yardage and we get closer and Will Lutz doesn't miss the field goal. But overall, Bo put us in a position to score some points and tie the game at halftime. And really, when you look at it for how that game was going, Sean, 10-10 at halftime, you'll take that, right? And so I don't think I have a whole lot of complaints about the offense. And then another, well, besides the running game, but we'll talk about that because my guy didn't even get a carry, my key to the game. So, but another positive was the fake punt. What a throw, right, by Riley Dixon, and a great catch by Marvin Mims, who's really starting to come into his own, man. I can't wait to see him next season. I think he's going to be even better. He'll be used even more, and that was just a great play by the Broncos. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cash in afterwards. I think we went 3 and out after that. Really a momentum killer after gaining so much momentum on that play. But the problem, Sean, this game, and it was hard for me to believe because the Broncos had the third best rushing defense coming into this game, but they got run out of the building completely. Yep. It wasn't even Josh Allen. It was James Cook.
Yeah.
And the Broncos, it was a matchup issue. Their offensive line is massive, and the Broncos are very undersized on the D-line. And when you're undersized on the D-line, your linebackers have to get in there and create plays, right? And our linebackers, for as good as they were this season, they're just not that top level that we need them to be as far as the speed is concerned. And unfortunately, the size of the Bills' offensive line wore the Broncos out. And the big thing for me, Sean, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Broncos did not lose this game on offense. They did not lose this game on special teams. They did not lose this game on third down. They lost this game on first down, on defense. They were constantly in a position where it was second and short, third and short. They were never, Josh Allen was never under pressure to get a third and long, really. And so what were your thoughts on that, and why were the Bills so effective in getting the Broncos into those advantageous situations for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, James Cook had a day for sure, and I think he's if not top 5, top 10 running back. If you look from a fantasy perspective, he had a fantastic year. He seems to be just like his brother. He's a super efficient back. He's hard to take down. And you're absolutely correct. They were never ever behind the chains, and so when you rush it that effectively, and conversely, you don't rush the ball at all on, how can you possess the ball and how can you get your defense off the field? It was just, even if we were able to tie it up and, maybe score coming into the second half, that time of possession, you're just going to wear a defense down. And to your point, you're already a smaller defense. You're already getting ran over by these gigantic linemen and this really tough back, and you can't get off the field. It just lasts forever. It's just 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2, whatever it is. And it's just, they can take a shot, and if they miss, they're probably going to get the first down. And so Josh Allen just had a super simple game. I think when you and I were texting, it was like, I think at one point I said, have Riley and Pat Surtain even had a throw at them? They just never – they did what we thought that they would do, I think. For the most part, they were never in jeopardy. Knox had some catches, obviously, just like we thought that they would, the tight ends and stuff like that. But, the only sacks I think we got were coverage sacks, in my opinion. The play just took a while. They got in the backfield, Zach Allen got him or whatever. They were never in obvious passing downs where, Benito and Cooper could go off. And yeah, it was just, I don't know. It felt like the Ravens game in the sense that, that they kind of just methodically moved it down the field and you just knew that they were going to score. I do think, to your point, at halftime, I think if Lutz makes that field goal, whatnot, I think it looks a little different. I think that was kind of the take the wind out of your sails type of thing, because it was such a great drive. the way they moved down. Sure, you can nitpick a couple things and maybe they got closer and whatnot. Absolutely. You know, I agree. There were some plays where like, dude, you got to go out of bounds there. But for a rookie quarterback with limited time like that and one time out to get you into a position to kick a field goal and you shank it is just, it's disappointing, man. It was kind of one of those things where like I had my hope and then he missed it. And I'm like, yeah, that was that margin for error that he's referring to that we just can't have. So you're right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a little bit harsher on the offense too, because it's like I said, now it's Beatty and Javonte. Beatty hasn't played all year. Why is he getting multiple touches? And the thing that really bothers me, and I don't want to get off the rails here because I know we're trying to stay positive, but it's like,
yeah, you're good.
Every time one of them runs for a good run, they come out the next play. And it drives me nuts. I get it. You want to find the hot hand and things like that. Give him 2-3 carries. If he rips off 7, why is he coming off the field? Give him another carry. That's what those feature backs do, man. You give them 2, 3, 4, the Josh Jacobs of the world and things like that. They literally just grind you down, dude. And we're just like, oh, great run. Well, now it's Javonte's turn. I'm like, what the hell are we doing, man? It drives me nuts. It makes no sense. If he gets 2 yards and you want to swap somebody out, whatever, that's a different story. But it's just, it's McLaughlin and then it's Javonte and then it's Beatty and then Mims is back there. It's exactly what I thought it would be. By the time we found a running back that was ready to maybe help us in the cause, we were already down 2 scores.
Yeah, it's been a point of frustration all season long, right, with the running backs. And my key to the game, Audric Estime didn't even see the field. And to your point, I'm watching the game and I'm like, Tyler Bidet, is that Bidet's getting a carry in the first quarter of a playoff game? Like, what are we doing, man? And then it was just like you said, it was Javonte. Javonte was his guy for a playoff game because he trusts the veteran, but it's like we haven't seen Javonte in like 4 weeks, dude. Like, what are you doing? And yes, it's extremely frustrating because can we just pick a running back? Like, I don't understand what the logic is. Like, do we not want to hurt feelings? Are we trying to be too cute? Do we think everybody's good? Like, what is the problem? And I wish the Denver media would call him out a little bit on this. They kind of tiptoe around the question, like, what's the thinking behind? It's like, no, man, ask him, like, what are you doing? Why can't you just like run the football with one guy? I'm not one of those guys who subscribes to this belief that the Broncos are devoid of talent in the backfield. I'm just not. I think Audric Estime is a terrific back. I think Jaleel McLaughlin has his little strengths, right? He's a good change of pace kind of back. I think Javonte is probably, I don't want to say cooked. I don't like talking that way about professional athletes when I wouldn't even get back to the line of scrimmage myself, but I would say that he's not been himself since his injury, right? But you have talent. Bidet, I think Watson looked terrific against the Chargers. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, thanks for your 3 carries where you looked like, prime Terrell Davis out there for a couple plays, but you got to go. Maybe not Terrell Davis. That was probably blasphemy. Maybe Olandis Gary for the true diehards out there. But like, I get it, man. It's frustrating to watch the Broncos, and that's my concern moving forward with Sean Payton. It's like, we could get a Cam Scatabo in the draft at 20. Sure. Are you going to use him as the primary back? Or are you going to rotate him in with guys like Jaleel McLaughlin? Like, I don't understand what the thinking is, and it concerns me as far as taking that next step with Sean Payton. Can we win a Super Bowl? Can we win a playoff game? Can we win the division with the way that this guy manages his backfield? And I don't know if you know too much, Sean, about the way he did this in New Orleans, but in my opinion, if you get a feature back and you do this, you're never going to be able to run the football, right?
Well, I mean, when he had Alvin Kamara, he fed him the ball, and whether it was, passes out of the backfield or things like that. So to the point, if you have 5 backs, I think it's that old saying with a quarterback, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. So I think it's the same thing in the backfield right now. If you got 5 running backs, you don't have one or hell 2. There's been plenty. The feature back just really isn't a thing anymore unless you're Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs. There's always tandems. There's kind of always been that.
Sure.
You got your Sonic and Knuckles, or you got your Thunder and Lightning, or whatever they want to call them in each of the cities that they're in. So, I think ultimately what it is he just doesn't love these guys. So if you can get a Scatabo or you can get a GNT, I think maybe he approaches it differently. But I also don't think that that's the biggest need, maybe, I guess, from a first round perspective. Kamara wasn't a first round pick. I think that you can get electric guys because of the devaluing of the position, if you will. So and Javonte was a second round pick. And if he doesn't have that knee injury, this conversation is null and void. The dude is the guy, he's getting a new contract and we're moving on. But as a free agent, I think the writing's on the wall. And me, I'm a big Javonte fan. I loved him coming out of college, as I know you did. I've wanted to see if he was going to be able to get back to form, and I was hoping they'd feed him the ball. So I'm disappointed in that because I do like him. I think I had the opportunity to meet him when I lived in Denver too. He's a super good guy. He was awesome from a playmaking perspective, and so that's disappointing. But I think, to your point, I don't think whoever is going to be the starting running back is on this roster. Otherwise, I think he would have gave the ball to Estime like we thought. And I think he's capable, but there's something about it. And maybe that he can't get over the fumbles in the early part of the season, and he's just not willing to let that go. I'm not sure, but I have to believe that if you're willing to use that many different guys, that you just don't have a guy that you love. And we're going to go out and get somebody, whether that's free agency or in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think you're correct. I think they like Estime. I don't know if they love Estime based on the way they use him or don't use him. Maybe he is more of a Thunder to Scatabo's or Scatabo. Is it Scatabo? Scatabo.
I think it's right? Yeah.
I mean, Scatabo he's fast and he's strong. I mean, that dude's quads are bigger than my entire body. But maybe he is a compliment back, to somebody else. Maybe, I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan. Everybody knows by now. Maybe you get an ETN in the second or third round, or somebody like that. I know it's a passing league, but you got to be able to run the football. And I don't want to harp too much on that right now because it is what it is, and the Broncos just were not good at running the football this year for whatever reason behind an offensive line. And the last thing I'll say about the offensive line is this is a prime offensive line. We need to take advantage of it in the next couple of years, because they're going to get older and they're not always going to stay healthy and be together as a unit all year, So that was one thing that was a little bit disappointing. But I will say this, Sean, going back to the game and tying into this entire conversation, it was a 13-7 game in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that, I don't know how people see it. I thought it was an absolutely horrible call on Brandon Jones. It's football, man. Like, we don't play the game in slow motion. It's football. It's cars crashing into each other. They're doing the best they can, and Brandon did not hit him in a malicious way. I think they got to get rid of these. They at least have to review these plays, right? Where there was no intent. There was no helmet to helmet. He hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's like, at what point do we not let these guys defend at all anymore? But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that. It was a 13-7 game in the third quarter. They were getting absolutely dominated, but they were still in the game. That speaks to how good of a football team the Broncos are, right? So my point here is we're not far away. We lost 31-7 because our defense got tired at the end there, and people want to talk about Surtain getting burned by Samuel, and I'm like, dude, they were on the field for 40 minutes. They were exhausted. Like,
I think they might sell him on that play too.
Exactly. Like, learn football. But anyway, I would say that the Broncos are close, right? And I would say that they're not like Super Bowl caliber close yet, because they did lose every single game to they lost to the Bengals, to the Ravens, to the Bills, to the Chargers twice, to the Chiefs. So obviously that has to improve next year. but we're close, right? And close means there's still some holes on the team, Sean. So in your opinion, besides running back, obviously, wide receiver, where are the holes on the team? Where would you like to see them addressed? Do you want to see them address inside linebacker and get faster there? Do we want more speed on the defensive line? Do we want corner depth? What do we need, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I, kind of before, you went back to the game in the abandonment of the run, if you will, and just the pass happy league. I think if you look at the remaining playoff teams, it's quite the opposite. The high seeds have Isaiah Pacheco, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Jameer Gibbs,
James Cook,
David Montgomery, James Cook, right? So as much as everybody likes the highlights and the big play receivers, I do think running back is obviously one of the things, as you mentioned. I do not think it's the first round pick. I'd love to see us get a game-changing tight end. It's time. Everybody else has one. I think the way our offense works, I've seen them. Drew Brees had Jimmy Graham, and he's had a couple others. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but he had those types of players. I would love to see us get a tight end. I would love to see Cortland Sutton be a number 2. I really do think that we need a true number 1 receiver. I think Cortland Sutton can be a great possession receiver, and I think he would excel as a number 2. And I think he's just at that point of his career, right? Like, I would love to see Cortland Sutton come back and stay as a Bronco. I think Bo Nix trusts him. I think he's a good piece to this puzzle. But I think we need that dude. And I think this draft is loaded, as some of the recent ones have been at the receiver position. So, I think I would like to go tight end, wide receiver, sprinkle a running back in there. But again, we're also going to be, I think we have the 12th most cap space in the entire NFL. So, some of these holes can be filled there as well. I don't know if that means you go T Higgins and you draft a Loveland or somebody like that, and move those things around. Did Josh Jacobs sign a 1 year, or does he have a multi-year deal?
Ooh, good question. I think it was just a 1 year, but I could be completely wrong on that.
I feel that way too, but I'd have to look at the contracts. That just kind of came to my mind because I feel like I saw his name kind of going around there. But to your point, that's kind of, I think we've done a good job drafting on defense. I think we need some linebacker depth, and I think being able to cover tight ends is still a weak spot. So if we're going to address something there, but I think my big one is I'm ready for a tight end. We've tried, we had Jake Butt, we had Albert O, and we had, we've tried all these guys. Yeah. I'm just ready for, let's just get a guy that's that dude we know he's going to be that guy. It's the kid from Penn State, right? Is the number 1.
Tyler Warren, baby.
Yeah, Tyler Warren and Loveland. I think let's just get one of those guys. Let's end the search. Keep Troutman as a great number 2 and Kroll. I think that rounds out the tight end room nicely. And then, I'd love to see wide receiver, running back, and maybe kind of like a middle linebacker, I think are maybe the biggest pieces. But I also know that we need a backup quarterback because I do believe both of our quarterbacks are free agents. So I know that's going to be where some of our cap space goes as well.
For sure. Yeah, great point on the tight end. I don't disagree with you at all. I love Tyler Warren. I think he's an absolute game changer. That guy can run the ball. He can throw the ball. Obviously, he catches the ball, yards after catch. He's extremely hard to take down, all these things. I think the problem, though, that the Broncos are going to run into if they want Tyler Warren is Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers just had the year of all years, right? And so teams are going to be like, man, we're going to reach for a tight end here in this next draft. I know it's going to happen. I could see him going in the top 10, top 15. Maybe if the Broncos love him that much, and we'll get into this, Sean, we'll have plenty of time to talk about draft and free agent and all that stuff. But maybe if the Broncos love him that much, they trade up and get him. I don't think moving up 5 spots is going to kill them too much, but it depends on the situation and how desperate the Broncos are. But to your point, there's going to be a lot of options. T. Higgins is going to be talked about. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be talked about when it comes to the Broncos because he wants out of there in New York. He would be a dynamic fit in a Sean Payton offense, in my opinion. And getting a brand new start and have proving it to everybody that New York was an aberration, I think that would be cool. But this, and we've talked about this before, this draft is loaded. with wide receiver talent, absolutely loaded. And so I think the Broncos will be able to get whatever they want with all their draft picks finally for the first time since I was like 24 years old, it seems like. But yeah, there are a couple other needs, though, in my opinion, Sean. We need some size and some ability to push the pocket inside from the defensive line. I love what DJ Jones and Roach and all these guys do, and they made us a very, very good run defense this year with their athleticism being a little bit undersized. But if we're gonna beat teams like the Bills and the Bengals will be back next year, rest assured. The Chiefs, the Ravens, we need some push up the middle. And so I think the Broncos may look there in free agency. They may look there in the draft, but I think they need to add a little size there. Defensively, still inside linebacker, got to get more athletic. Cody Barton was a fantastic addition to the Broncos, but I think they can get a little bit faster there, a little bit more playmaky there, if you will.
Yeah.
Corner depth is a little bit of a problem, I think, for the Broncos. I think Jaquan may, we may differ on this, but I feel like he may be regressed a little bit this year. But maybe that's just because teams were targeting him over Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain, the defensive player of the year. So that could be a thing, right? Brandon Jones was outstanding as an addition at safety. I think he was great. And then obviously Zach Allen and Nick Bonito are terrors on the edge. So I think a little bit of size on the inside, more athleticism and some speed to cover these tight ends so we don't have to play zone as much and we don't have to put Surtain on Kelsey or Surtain on Likely and Evan or Likely and Andrews and guys like that, right? We can keep Surtain out on his island and do things like that. And Brock Bowers is going to be a huge problem for a decade plus. So we're going to have to figure out how to address that position. But obviously, right, wide receiver, tight end, running back. Would you draft Sean if he was okay? I know you said it wasn't a first round thing, but would you be okay if the Broncos drafted Cam Scatabo in the first round at 20?
I think the two top tight ends would have to be gone.
Okay.
I think if either of them are available, I think that's the route that you can go just because I think the drop off there is more significant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I think it's just, I don't know, man, we've been chasing it for so long. Behind quarterback, I feel like, that's just one of those positions we just keep swinging and missing on. So to answer your question, yes, I think he's fantastic. And I think the way he plays would be a perfect fit for this team. But you only get one first round pick, right? And so that's the thing. And obviously we're stressing the running back needs. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive to what we've been talking about here.
Right.
But I also think that Estime can play. So, that's one of those things there. And we're not going to get a game-changing tight end in free agency. We might be able to get a game-changing defensive end in free agency. We might be able to get a game-changing wide receiver in free agency or in a trade, like you're saying. I also think George Pickens is going to be available, but I don't know that he's the locker room fit. But I do think that him and Garrett Wilson, guys like that, are going to be available. So you can go with maybe a later wide receiver, but we've seen it. I mean, Devontae Adams is a second round pick. There's dudes in the second round that are just fantastic all the time.
I think DK was a second round pick too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I also think Garrett Wilson could be that Jerry Jeudy style player in reverse for us, right? Like Jeudy needed to get out and he played fantastic this year and he didn't have great quarterback play. Bring Garrett Wilson in. I think that's a really good point. I think if he wants out, will they trade him in the AFC? Who knows, whatever. I don't know how they feel about the Jets and they're idiots. So maybe they will, but I would say if those top two tight ends are gone and GNT or Scatabo is available, but sure. Yeah. Let's see what it looks like. You know what I mean? So I would be cool there. I think that would be fun. I think he's a fan favorite type of player and I think he fits the system.
Absolutely. Sean, great stuff tonight. I think really, right, we're in a great place. We have finally found our quarterback. I mean, this dude threw the second most touchdowns by a rookie in NFL history, and this is a guy who didn't throw a touchdown until week 4? imagine if he had turned it on before that, man, he'd be setting some records, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then you have the Chiefs game, you have all this stuff, all these positives from Bo Nix this year, who has completely shut me up. I won't say anything anymore. Sorry, guys. He's the quarterback, so we're good there, right? So I think to end this on a positive note, the Broncos are right there. They finally have a quarterback. They need to find some weapons around him, build a Cincinnati Bengals-like offense, minus the terrible offensive line that the Bengals have, because we already have an offensive line in place here. But I think it's a good time to be a Broncos fan. Finally, it's exciting. We're excited about the offseason. We're excited about where they can go next year. The schedule looks pretty favorable on paper. We got the Jaguars and the Titans at home. You know, like you never know with injuries and stuff like that. But I think for the Broncos finishing third place again, right? The schedule is going to end up favoring them, and they're going to be a better football team next year. Now, I really hope that the guys that stayed healthy this year can stay healthy again next year. Obviously, Surtain and Benito and the entire offensive line, all those guys were able to stay healthy, right? So that'll be huge for the Broncos. But we do have a good coaching staff, and even though we have our reservations about Sean Payton, he is a good coach. He surrounds himself with a good staff. I think the Broncos are in good hands. We have a lot to look forward to, and I think we'll be ready to take on these teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, all these guys, the Bengals. These teams are here to stay, and the Broncos know this. And so they're going to do everything they can to compete, and I can't wait for it, Sean. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that as we close this thing out? I mean, people should be excited, right?
Yeah. I mean, we got, if not the best rookie quarterback, we got the second best one, right, at 12. So, you know, when you look at the draft process and what these guys were able to do with the, you know, one hand tied behind their back, it's pretty cool, you know. And now to have a full slate of draft picks, to have a full pocket full of money, it's gonna be exciting, man. I'm ready for it. You know, I don't think that there's anything that they could do wrong. I've seen the free agent list. I wasn't like, man, I can't believe that guy is going to be gone. You know, I think it's a replaceable. I think there's 13 guys. You know, so there's not like this. DJ Jones, I think, was the one that kind of stood out to me the most, and I think McMillan might be one as well. But you know, like you said, if you want to get bigger, I think DJ would resign. But anyway, you know, we'll get into that stuff. But you know, I think it was an awesome season. The things that we're going into are the best that they've been in years. We're going to have the most draft picks in the best position and the most money that we've had in a long time. So to make the playoffs, to have found your quarterback, and then you add those things on the back end of it, I don't know how Broncos fans couldn't be excited, even though we're not finished with this football season yet.
Absolutely. And there's still a lot of talent on the offensive side that hasn't been used yet to their full ability, like Bailey and Franklin. So we still have that. I think just adding running backs, tight ends, maybe a number one wide receiver to complement these guys. We're in a good place. So Bronco fans, this is the Broncos Source podcast. You can find us on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at broncos.source. You can listen to us on Spotify as well. I'm at Mile Jaimez. If you want to follow me, Sean's at Sean. But anyway, we look forward to bringing you guys more Broncos coverage for a very long time. This offseason is going to be exciting. Stay with us. We'll have draft coverage, free agents coverage, and everything else that you guys need. And we look forward to spending all that time with you guys. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs. Go Ravens. And we'll talk to you soon. We'll probably have another one here after the Super Bowl, unless there's some news that comes out regarding the Broncos. So thank you guys for your support this year. And let's have a good year in 2025. Go Broncos.
See you soon.